Hey guys, NJ here, and today we're looking at the Crusader GT2 200 by Diatone. Now, Diatone have been around for a fairly long time. They've always tended to make sort of fairly budget stuff, but to be honest with you, everything that I've built Diatone-wise, mainly for other people, I've been pretty impressed with. You know, it's not not the greatest stuff in the world, but they've always made fairly decent and solid frames out of reasonably good materials. But they're certainly not in the more premium class, and I think this might very well be a real step in the right direction for them, and it certainly caught my attention when I first saw the design of this. So you know, I was intrigued enough to ask about it, and thanks to Banggood for sending me this one out to have a look at in more detail. So let's have a look at what actually comes in the box. And of course, later on in part 2, we will have a look at the setup, and we will look at how to do the tuning, and I will fiddle with it as I always do to get the best out of it, and look at what extras we can do and how much flexibility we've got with the actual model itself. This is an almost ready to fly kit. It doesn't come with a receiver, so you will have to add one yourself. But let's see what else comes in the box when you get it, as I have right here. So it looks straight off the bat like we've got a AMWay circular polarized 5.8 gig antenna. We've all seen those before. Good, reliable and pretty tough 5.8 antenna, so no issues with that. Could see that coming with it. A fairly standard set of props. I don't very much doubt that I'll be using those because I have so many more of my own preference, but you know, it's a nice gesture to have some props in the kit. We've got a pack of wires here, and it does look like everything's been nicely labelled, so yeah, kudos for that. I think that's something you don't tend to see in kits too often, is all the labels wired up like that. We have a buzzer here. This always makes me laugh. I don't know if you can see this close up or not. I'll get that to focus. Remove after washing. Yes, we all like to remove after giving our buzzers a thoroughly good wash. I don't know why that's on there. Maybe it is at the point where they just don't correct it because it's funny. One thing I have noticed in here, which when I had a look earlier caught my eye, there is a little USB connector, so it looks like it's going to be a mini JST connector into the board, and then a USB extension. Not super excited about that, but you know, we'll look at why they do that perhaps a little bit later on. All in all, it's nice to see everything nicely labelled up, so yeah, that's a good effort, I think. What else have we got here? We have a bag of LED strips, which I presume are all going to be different colours for your choice to fit to the back, and then what looks like a 12-volt regulator, probably a step-down regulator, maybe, or step-up, step-down. I can't really make it out from there. 2 to 4S input. Okay, so yeah, you've got the 12-volt reg there. And then a choice, and those don't look like addressable LEDs. Might have been nicer to put an addressable LED in there, but still you've got some options there if you want, so again, no big problem with that. This is one of the mounts that goes on top the craft. This looks like the one for the GoPro, a little aluminium mount here. With mounting brackets. The one that comes pre-installed is for the Session. Great that they've offered 2 options there, and it accommodates both of those style of cameras straight off the bat. Yeah, really happy with that. Nice inclusion. So we've got both types of mount there, depending on what type of camera you're using. Plenty of double-sided adhesive pad, so that's always useful to have. What else have we got? We have a pack of straps. Now they look like they've got actual buckles on them, which is nice because I hate straps that don't have buckles on because you can't ratchet them down, and they are rubberized on the back, so full marks for that. And how many have we got in there? We got 3. Excellent. That's a really nice thing. So I guess you've got a couple, well, you got one for the battery and then a couple or one for the GoPro. Yeah, that's a really nice inclusion that they've put 3 in there. And then we have motor nuts. Now they're all the same colour, so I'm going to assume that they're all threaded all the same way, which is also good because I don't like counterclockwise threads. I prefer them all to go on the same way. We have in here various spares, I presume, as the quad comes pre-assembled, and this looks like spare standoffs, I think these are as well, for the flight controller. So yeah, nice comprehensive little bag of spares and straps, liking what I'm seeing so far. And then in here we have what looks like a big pack of manuals, and this looks like your standard 1177 programming cable. So we've all seen those before, inline programming cable. So that's nothing new. In terms of what we have here, frame kit installation description, so even though it's pre-assembled, it's nice to have that. We have D-Link F3, so this is the PDB and flight controller built into one. There's a little warning here about the use of UART, and when you connected it to the USB you have to disconnect it from the VTX possibly. We'll have a look at that in part 2 of the video. Let's just have a quick look in here. Nice illustrated manual, and it looks like battery input 2 to 6S, so that's promising. Perhaps we could try this out the box. This could be 5S ready. I guess we'll have to have a look. Shows you where to wire the buzzer up. Yeah, that's all very nice. Nicely illustrated. Good, good. Nice to see that. What else have we got here? We have electronic equipment installation. So that's going to be, there's the HS1177. Nothing in there that we need to worry about right now. This that looks like ESC programming to me, and I think that probably is. And yeah, it does look like we have the settings in there as well. These are BL Heli S 30 amp, so they will support one shot 125, one shot 42, and multi-shot. Be interesting to see whether they'd be D-shot ready or not. And I guess that will be down to whether they have signal capacitors on there, although they aren't the worst thing in the world to remove once they're identified. So yeah, I think that's pretty much what's expected. That's a continuation, so that's all fine. And then we have here some information on the motors. Now, on the motors, I'm pretty sure it said they were 2300 kV, but we have here, so it's not the 1480 4000 kV, which would be on the smaller model. We have diesel 2205. Now, this seems to suggest that they're 2480 kV. Which is much closer to the sweet spot of kV I prefer, certainly. So I hope they are that, even though they are labelled on the actual motors at 2300. So there's a bit of a conflict between what's being said here and what's actually on the craft. So I guess I'll have to do some more digging to find out which kV is correct. So yeah, there we go. And then finally some information here, running out of room, on the VTX and the VTX itself. Let's have a quick look just to get a quick idea of what's what here. So RF output power, so great, so it has 0. That's always nice that you can actually have the power off. 25 milliwatts, 200 milliwatts and 600 milliwatts. That's great, really nice to see that. And there's your table here with the various frequencies, 5740 being Fat Shark 1. Group D channel 1, so yeah, that all looks fairly normal, and yeah, that looks good too. So let's have a quick look at the craft itself, and the first thing that I notice is, well, there's a few things here. One is the soldering on here actually looks, I would go as far as to say, decent. You know, when you get these RTF pre-soldered, pre-made, you know, I've always got this, you know, I have to start taking things apart to inspect everything, because for me to trust it, I have to know it's most of the time that it's passed my inspection and that it's done to a level where I'm happy with it. And at a glance, I would say the soldering on this is actually good. It's good soldering, and I can't see any kind of bad spots of soldering or anything that hasn't been done properly. So yeah, the soldering looks great. What else can I say? This frame thickness, wow, that is super thick and yeah, really stiff. That's not going. I think you have to worry about that base plate breaking. That really is mega tough. I would guess we're at 5mm here. Let me see what the calipers say. They say 5.35. Wow. Let's try that somewhere else just to confirm that. Yeah, that's about 5.3, 5.4. That is some seriously thick carbon they've decided to put on there, so you know, that's great. I've got no problem with that at all. There does appear to be a very, I'm sure you can see that in the camera, I mean look how glossy that is. They've put a really thick coat of lacquer on here. I've got no issue with that. I mean, one of the nice things about lacquering up the carbon is that it's super, there's no sharp edges. That is just super smooth everywhere, so that's a good thing, because especially when you have everything in tight spaces like this, you don't want any sharp edges. And often with frames, I'll take them and grab myself a little needle file and some water, and I will start to sand down those corners to get rid of all sharp edges. There is absolutely no need for that in this instance. Those all feel beautifully smooth. So yeah, that's kind of a nice thing. Some people may think that a thick layer of gloss might just add to the weight, but I tell you what, this thing feels light, considering, you know, this is pretty much fully loaded minus a battery and a camera, if you'll be running a camera on top here. Yeah, I think they've done a really nice job. I've got to say, I absolutely love this piece of aluminium at the back with a pigtail mounting for the VTX. No stress on the VTX board, that's well protected underneath the flight controller, and then mounted, braced on the back on this plate and angled. I think that's a wonderful idea. So that gets 2 huge thumbs up for me. Same with we've got the Session mount pre-installed here for the GoPro Session, place to run the battery strap through. Nice and strong. I guess the only thing, I mean obviously we can angle this camera up to quite a degree, and you know, me personally, I tend to run at around 40 degrees these days. So with that, an up angle, the only thing I'd say is perhaps this hasn't got enough of an angle. This only looks at maybe 10-15 degrees up for the Session. It could do with being could do with some adjustment. It looks like you could probably shim underneath these 2 parts. If you put some metal washers under here or something, you could probably shim this up a little bit higher and increase that angle. So maybe there's a few options, or even a little piece of foam blocks. It's nothing you can't work around. But I do love how low profile this looks. It really does look and feel premium. It looks like these metal standoffs for the flight controller screw into this aluminium base plate. They don't come out the other side here, which I guess is a good thing, because this is nice and flat for your battery to mount on, and then you'd run your strap through this gap here. So again, very nice. I like that. Good design choice. What else can I say? I suppose if there's anything that you could maybe say about, I guess it's the fact that this camera is kind of fully exposed out the front here. I guess time will tell how well that fares, but if you want to keep things as light as possible and as small as possible, there are always going to be a few payoffs. There's no reason why you couldn't utilise maybe these 2 side screws and have some kind of carbon protector come off just to sit in front here and protect the front sides of this camera. That'd be fairly easy to fashion, but it would be nice if they had an option, or maybe even included just a couple of side protector plates for that camera. Should you choose to use them. That would probably be my only kind of at a quick glance complaint. As I was saying about these motors, they specify 2300 kV. I can't, looking at them, see any kind of rebranding of another motor. I don't recognise this design. If any of you do, perhaps drop it in the comments, but it doesn't look like anything that I've seen before. Hollow shaft, which is good. They feel absolutely rock solid, which is nice. I hate getting motors out of the package and finding that they've got play in the shaft, because that kind of play at the RPMs these motors do inevitably turns into vibration, and it also ends up turning into wearing the bearings out quicker. So these feel really solid and really smooth. The magnets look nice and close to the stators. The windings are silver, although I very much doubt they're actual silver because that would cost a fortune. The magnets look really close to the stators, but they don't look like arced magnets to my eye. I'd have to pull one of those off and maybe look at it from the underside to be 100% sure of that. But yeah, you know, these look decent. This base plate probably makes them a little taller than they need to be, but it's almost got a kind of heatsink design here, which is, yeah, that's quite nice. I did notice, I was going to mention that I presume it has a screw to hold in against the other side of the motor instead of a C-clip, but there's no hole in that for me to peer through, so I'm actually going to have to pull that off to have a look on the underside. And do you know what, let me do that quickly now so we can see what's under there. Okay, so what can we see here? So it does, right, there you go. You can see they've actually sort of countersunk this section, but decided to leave it blocked rather than let it go through. Maybe that's not such a bad idea, because that is a really good, although it's a little bit more of a pain if you like to, you know, occasionally lubricate the bearings, which I do, you know, every 20 flights I'll just put a single drop of some decent high-speed bearing oil in just to keep them in good condition. That's always worked for me over the years. Something like the Scorpion high-speed bearing oil is really good stuff. Now the obvious problem with that would be with most frames, that going through, there's also a really good, even though these bearings are sealed, you still get dirt and rubbish go into there. So I think that's not such a bad plan that these are actually blocked off and not milled all the way through. That will help keep that nice and clean in there. So what we can see, having a closer look at that, is this does have a C-clip instead of a screw on the bottom. I mean, as it's a hollow shaft, it wouldn't really have mattered to thread that internally and then have a screw on the end. I prefer that, but it's no biggie, you know, it's one of those things. You don't often have to pull these out to change the bearings, but it looks like it's pretty easy to service, so that's no bad thing. And as I said, the actual construction of these motors feel really good and tough, so we'll see how they perform. And a quick look at the weight. Let's see where we are here. 302 grams. Wow, that's actually really good considering the thickness of this base plate at, you know, 5.4 or whatever it was mil thick. Yeah, that's very respectable. 350-ish gram battery on there, some props and an antenna, and that's a really good all-up weight for a quad of this size and power. This should go like stink, I reckon. So the only other thing that I will be changing, I will definitely be installing the buzzer. I will install an XSR. I'm not entirely sure where I'll be installing the XSR because there isn't actually a way of sticking it to the underside of this brace, as it's just a hollow hole, so it may have to be soft mounted with a pad on top of the flight controller. I'll have a little think about where to do that. The other thing I will do will also be changing out, this looks very much like a 2.8 lens to me. I will verify that, but that's not something I like flying with, haven't done for a long while. I will be putting in a 2.1, perhaps a GoPro 2 lens or similar will be replacing that. Other than that, we will be flying it as is, sticking a decent 4S on it and going out and giving it a go. There really isn't much to do to finish this, so that's a quick look at it for now. We'll be back in part 2 where we'll look at the setup, we'll see how it flies, and we'll go through any modifications that I choose to do. But this looks very promising and a really nice step in the right direction for Diatone. So thanks very much for watching, and watch this space. See you soon.